K-pop, Kids Protecting Our Planet, and I'm from right here in good old Kettleman City. And what can I say about this town? We have too many problems to list. I mean, from biosolids to chem waste to pesticides to diesel emissions and highway emissions. We have a lot of great people out here, and we do a lot of good work with the community. We try to keep everyone informed, but sometimes, like my mom knows as well, it gets really hard. You have to stay up all day for meetings. Have to network with all kinds of people, but in the end, it's all for the greater good. The work we do here, it's not something, it's not important. It's we're helping people's lives, people's families change. We're stopping asthma, trying to lower the rate of the health effects out here. I think that's good.
What are some challenges that you face as a young person, in the sense that you didn't really have like a normal childhood?
Well, some challenges would be, it's kind of hard to explain to your friends, when they're out doing their thing and they say, oh, why can't you come? Why can't you do this with us? Oh, because I'm doing, my environmental work. And they're like, why? Why do it? It's because it's the right thing. There's no other answer. And other challenges, some people look down on us because of our work and they think that we are against progress, that we are against our own town, when in reality it's quite the opposite. We've always tried to make this town a better place to live in. Why would we want to hinder progress in our own town? Other challenges could even be, these polluters have so many more resources than we do. I mean, they can afford to buy out people, they can afford to ship in workers from locations all over the country. And it can be really difficult to deal with that at times if we're not, organized and networked and united together in this fight.
So the students are in a college that the theme of the college is social justice and community. What do you think that Kettleman City has to teach UCSC students about social justice and community?
Well, we can definitely teach you that, it can be done. Look at the incinerator. I mean, this was years ago when this technology was barely coming out, and they wanted to burn trash right here in Kettleman City, and my grandparents, along with Bradley Angel and Luke Cole, took a stand and they said no. And it was almost like a miracle that the incinerator was stopped. They showed that the power of the people united can't be divided, that you can make a difference. Anyone can make a difference. And social justice, it can be achieved. It's not something that is impossible as long as we work together for the goal.
Why do you think what are the ways that environmental justice is exemplified here in Kettleman City, other than the contamination? Like, why do you think that this place has so many problems?
This place has so many problems because ultimately, at the end of the day, our government officials are the ones that let it happen to us. They cater more towards the polluters than their own people, and that's why we fight, because it's not right.
What can college students do in support of this cause of Kettleman City and other environmental justice issues?
If anyone at the college would like to help us, I mean, they can always donate, not their time, not their money, but their time. We always need volunteers to help us network. We need people to get the message out there that there are things going wrong out here and that we do need help. We all need to unify together to defeat these big companies. Unity is a big thing. It's the reason, we had our big meetings, and it's the reason we're friends. It creates a lot of bonds, and it helps us get through these rough times. And they could also help out by donating money.
And
we've been involved in the environmental justice struggle for over 20 years. My family, we are a multi-generational activist family. My parents were co-founders of the People for Clean Air and Water of Kettleman City, and they were actively involved in the struggle to turn down the permits for a proposed toxic waste incinerator, which would have been the first one in California. And I've learned from them that there's right, there's wrong, and you have to continue fighting. And it's a lesson that I've given my kids as well. My son has been involved in the environmental justice movement since he was a very small child. In fact, that's how he and his friends formed the organization K-Pop, Kids Protecting Our Planet, because they were always at meetings with their parents, so they decided that they as youth needed their own organization, and they became involved that way as well. But I remember this one particular meeting where EPA came out and they were talking about how we weren't considered an environmental justice community because we weren't really affected by having a toxic waste dump in town. And the kids came up with a list of 50 things they'd rather be doing than sitting at that meeting. And they said that it's not fair that they have to go and attend these meetings and instead of all these other things that they as teenagers would rather be doing at home. And it's true. In other communities, they don't have to defend themselves that way. And it made me proud, but it made me sad. And when my daughter was born, my kids are 14 years apart, so when my daughter was born, I remember Bradley Angel saying, oh yay, another generation to fight for Kettleman City. And I got really mad because I thought, why should I have to give another child to the movement? We've already given and we've already fought, and she shouldn't have to. It shouldn't be something that she has to do, but she's growing up the same way. And I mean, it's a good thing, but it shouldn't have to be that way. We think that if the government agencies followed their own rules and really looked at what they're permitting in these kinds of communities, they wouldn't continue doing it. They would know that these communities are vulnerable already, and they would follow their own rules, and they wouldn't continue to permit polluters to take advantage of us. I think that we're just like anybody else. I mean, the poverty is high here, but people are hardworking. But we're just like anybody else, and we have the same aspirations and the same dreams. They might be in Spanish, but we still have them. And you know, we want to live here with our family, in a small town where everybody knows each other, where you go to church where you were baptized and had your first communion and got married and everything. That we like that. That's why we live here, and we shouldn't have to flee because businesses aren't doing what they're supposed to do, and agencies aren't holding them to what they're supposed to do. It's very simple. When you talk environmental justice, it means that everyone shares the burden of toxic waste disposal. But unfortunately, we know that it's not that way, and until it is, then we continue fighting. We thought when we defeated the incinerator that the struggles were over in Kettleman City. We thought that we had shown our strength as a community. We didn't know that several years later there would be this new struggle against an expansion. And you know, the thing about the expansion is that we're already designated a vulnerable community. EPA has acknowledged that, especially with their new Cal EnviroScreen tool that says that Kettleman City is in the top 10% of environmentally vulnerable communities. But we feel like at the same time, if they're willing to label us as environmentally vulnerable, how can they permit any addition to that burden? It should be common sense that if a community is already vulnerable, you don't add to it. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is. It seems like they'll pay lip service to cumulative health impacts and environmental justice, but when it comes down to it, it seems like it's always swayed in the polluters, on the polluter side. And that's what this struggle with the expansion is. We're fighting to stop the expansion, because even if everything was on the up and up, even if everything was as safe as they say, as technologically sound as they say, the reality is that we can't take anymore. That it's enough. We cannot take anymore. It should be a burden that's shared by everyone in California. We all make toxic waste. We've been told that constantly. A question that I've been asked my whole life is, people say, well, everyone makes waste. It has to go somewhere. What do you suggest we do with it? And the truth is, I don't have the answer to that. But I bet you there's people in other towns with a lot more resources that can come up with that answer a lot quicker. And I think that it shouldn't be up to communities like ours to have that answer, because we don't have it. But give the problem to other people that do have those resources, and I bet you they would come up with a solution a lot quicker. A lot of these trainers, goodness gracious. A lot of these trailers are cut in half. There's a wall built in the middle so they can rent out to 2 families. Or to
$1,000 like a
farmers.
month still.
Yeah.
For half a trailer?
Yeah. Serious. For half a trailer.
There's a lot of property.
Someone lives in that.
Yeah. It's right here. I was with a reporter one time right here because I brought him up to the entrance.
Yeah.
And of course they noticed us right away because they have security guards right
Oh
there.
yeah, they could see us clearly right
And
now.
I guess they called CHP, and a CHP car came, and he went like this right around my car and picked up all kinds of dirt and dust, and then he kept going and he parked up there at the hill. But we're on public land right here. There's nothing they could do about it. And this is the entrance, and it's about a mile in there.
I mean, we could honestly go if we wanted to, but then we get escorted out pretty quick.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
I'm sure they would not want to see us up there.
Do I go to?
So we're at the entrance to waste management.
Wait, don't forget though, it's not just waste management. That's something they use to make it seem like it's more friendly, like they're your neighborhood dump. It's chemical waste management, chem waste.
It used to be called chemical waste management, but they left the chemical off sometime in the 90s because they figure that people won't remember that it's a hazardous waste dump. It's the largest toxic waste landfill west of the Mississippi, and it's located 3 miles outside of town, 2 miles outside of the business district, and it goes in about a mile. And these hills that you see right here, a lot of them are places where they've dumped and they layer it. They put a clay cap on top.
You see those 4 little bumps up there? That's a huge hole up in there, up and straight directly into the hill. Those 4 little holes, you see? Those 4 little...
Up there.
Yeah, up there. Yeah, that's probably what, B19?
I think that's the newest one,
Yeah.
B19. And they do toxic waste, they do municipal waste. In fact, they had a new process where they were layering toxic waste with municipal waste and then capping it. And they also have an anaerobic bioreactor. It's in its experimental stages. It's a 12-year project.
They throw water onto the trash and they heat it up to make the trash decompose faster.
Of course, when you decompose something faster, you have more methane produced. And they're supposed to have a methane capture project where they're capturing methane to
Power their vehicles.
power their own equipment. But after 3 years, they review it every 3 years. In the first 3 years, we found out that the methane that they had captured in the first 3 years, they hadn't captured anything. So basically, all they have to do is promise to think about capturing the methane, and they can continue with their permit. They like to tell us about their kit foxes and their bunnies. They say it's very serene and beautiful. Of course, we're in a drought, or else, and it's not the time of year where it would be green, but it used to be green down here, and it looks very pretty, but what's under it is
I heard a really big bug in back.
scary. It's pretty scary. And you can see it's a really well-traveled road right here. And it's a Sunday, so there's not a lot of truck traffic coming in. And their truck traffic has been cut down considerably because we've managed to hold up their expansion for 6 years, causing them to run out of room. They were down to 1% capacity, and they're toxic.
I mean, now that they got the expansion, okayed, there's going to be a lot more traffic all the time. Like, there's going to be semis 24/7, back and forth both ways. Because both ways, I mean, this is between San Francisco and LA, so they're going to be coming both ways, hitting this town from all directions.
Right now, they're receiving about 77 to 80 trucks a day. With the expansion going through, they'll go up to 400 trucks a day, 7 days a week. So
So
that will be a considerable increase in the traffic.
not only in the traffic, but the diesel emissions. I mean, they're going to be polluting a lot more. A lot more trailers are going to be on the road, especially close to the town. So, I mean, it's obviously going to release all that diesel. It's going to go somewhere. It's not just going to float in the air.
One of the concessions that they made when DTSC made when they gave them their expansion permit, was that they would be using clean diesel trucks. And so that's supposed to make up for the fact that they're throwing more toxic waste. But I think that clean diesel trucks shouldn't be either this or that. It should be both things, a reduction in waste and clean diesel trucks. But that's one of the ways that they're trying to pacify the town with the clean diesel. And what's unfortunate is that the company that they're using for hauling the municipal waste, that's the bulk of the trucks right now, it's owned by a former board of supervisors, which is a real conflict of interest, because any increase in trash, it lines his pocket. So I don't think he was very unbiased in supporting the project.
Do you guys remember when we had that mad cow disease go around? The mad cow disease? They're all buried up there.
They were hauling the carcasses.
Yeah, they had to bury, like, whatever they were transporting them in, they had to bury it entirely, like the whole load. Like, they couldn't take those off. They're super disgusting, like toxic, like bad for you, and they still have them buried up there.
We know for a fact that there's sometimes they bring trucks in and they say that they call them hot trucks that are so full of waste, toxic waste, that they can't unload them, so they bury the whole cab up there.
Yeah, the whole thing, everything.
In the 80s, there was about 52 train cars sitting in the town of Huron, maybe 30 miles from here, that they couldn't find a space for, and they sat on the tracks for 9 months over there in their town. When they finally agreed to ship them up here, they couldn't unload those cars anymore. They buried the 52 rail cars up there, full of waste.
That gives you an idea of how huge this place is. So.
And they always, tell you about the liners. They have protective liners so that they say we can't possibly get water contamination. But even the manufacturers of the liners will tell you that the life is 30 years. And some of us have been in Kettleman City more than 30 years, so we're wondering, how does that work? When we first moved here, this was a regular landfill, municipal landfill. In '79, they turned it into a hazardous waste landfill without warning the people, without telling anybody anything. It's like they came in overnight, snuck in, no public process. No one was allowed to say anything about it, knowing what it would do to property values, people buying their homes there. We've had people that try to sell their homes in Kettleman City, and they're told, well, if you didn't live next to a toxic dump, your home would be worth this much, but because you live here, it's worth this much. And it's really unfortunate for people when they tried so hard to buy their first home and stuff. So it's a farm working community. It's a hard working community, but there is a lot of poverty.
And then just to add on to what we were saying about the liners, I mean, the other thing they haven't taken into consideration is this new trend of fracking. It's moving the tectonic plates of the earth, and they're fracking everywhere. So it's going to affect all the plates under the earth. What's going to happen to all this hundreds of thousands of tons of trash?
In the 80s, they did have a slide in the 80s where there was a spill. The toxic waste slipped and moved. And right across from here, you can't see because the air is real bad today, but they have a fracking well. There's this company from Canada called Zodiac Energy.
Times at night where you could smell the trash so strong, not only from this dump, but from the one in Avenal as well. The smell travels. All that smell travels. It smells disgusting in the night.
Avenal it's the next town over. It's about 17 miles from here. And they did a dirty deal with LA, their city council. They're an actual city to bring in LA's trash, municipal trash. And their trash is right over the city. I mean, it's
literally
adjacent to the rural health clinic, right next door to it. It stinks. The dust over there is unimaginable. The BBC did a report last year on their rate of valley fever has gone up 400% since the dump has been there. And valley fever, it comes from a spore in the dirt. When you're moving thousands of tons of dirt right over a city, people are going to breathe in the spore that causes valley fever. They have a state prison over there, and that's their main concern because they might have to move the prisoners because so many of them have damaged lungs from the valley fever. And it's the same thing here. I don't know any household that hasn't been touched by valley fever.
Maricela, what was the statistics about birth defects? It was, I mean, obviously the 5 and the 14-month period, but Bradley said it was more than that. It was closer to 11.
It was 5 cleft palate, but it was 13 altogether. There was kids that were born with their intestines on the outside, kids born with their tongue stuck to the roof of their mouth, kids born without fingers, with brain disorders. It was 13. Oh, and heart defects. There was at least 2 or 3 kids that needed open heart surgery within the first week of their life because they were born with real bad heart defects.
So in a population of 1,500, you had 13 children with medical issues within a 14-month period?
14-month period. And with all this dirt that you're moving around, won't it stir up the valley fever spore and make people sick? He said, well, the truth is if you live here in the valley, you're going to get it anyway. He said, but did I tell you how much we... He says, did I tell you how much we donated for the lights at the high school?
So the valley fever, because of all the garbage, there's a spore that gets inhaled, and you're saying that. So that's the kind of
it's in the dirt.
Not only inhale, you could get it in your skin.
in your
too.
skin, like it just lands on your skin, and if you have like any sort of like wound or something, it gets in. Okay, so it's a fungal infection.
It's a fungal infection,
and people die from it.
It eats your lungs.
Oh yeah, you could die.
You could die from it. They struck oil here in the 30s,
A
and
lot
that's
of
why these little towns
Kettleman,
were.
like a lot of the streets are named after oil, like General Petroleum, Standard Oil. Those are like our street names.
That's why these towns were established down now in Kettleman City. This is Kettleman Hills oil field. You can see the rigs.
Like you can see people.
They talk about this gusher, the first one they struck in Kettleman City in the late 20s. They say that it ran for over a week. It gushed for over a week. And in the 30s, they did a movie about the oil out here Clark Gable was in. That used to be our claim to fame before Kettleman. Right here, and I'm sure you'll see the irony of it, is where the company spokesperson moved in. That house right there. Is that church? They moved him in. He was brand new married. Rumor is that Kim Waste was paying his rent, so he could live among the people. His new little bride started teaching a catechism at church. He got on the water board because now he was a resident. And you'll see how much nicer that house is than anything around it. They just wormed themselves way into the community. And he speaks Spanish. He's from Puerto
That man is very smart though. Oh yeah. He's a genius, but he's a bastard.
The first thing he did was go around town and ask if there was any dirt on our family. On me.